This is Rummy's Corner.
Hey boxing fans, welcome to part 1 of the newest survey series. Volunteers are providing me with a list containing between 10 and 25 names of the best boxers in each decade, and for this particular decade there were 10 volunteers. 10 is the minimum requirement for each submission, 25 is the maximum, and this is the point system. Very straightforward, and we are starting with the 1890s. So let's dive right in for the top 10 countdown based on the scoring criteria. At number 10, we have Peter Jackson, the Black Prince. Jackson was a heavyweight out of Australia, and he was one of the best black boxers in his time. He was known for having great footwork, tremendous athleticism, and very good power. The Black Prince never got a title shot because of the color line that existed at that time, but he did win the Australian heavyweight title, the Commonwealth heavyweight title, and also the World Colored Heavyweight Championship. Jackson is perhaps best known for his grueling 61-round no contest against future champion Gentleman Jim Corbett. A lot of Jackson's notable feats actually happened in the 1880s, but the Black Prince made 6 out of 10 lists in the survey, including one top 5 spot, which landed him in the top 10 here. Number 9 is Frank Erne. The Buffalo Boy was a Swiss-born American boxer, known for having great ring generalship. Erne captured the World Featherweight Championship in 1896, and he won the World Lightweight Championship in 1899. Erne had an outstanding resume where he faced and defeated many of the great boxers competing in his weight range from that era, and he continued fighting and winning at the elite level into the next decade. Erne appeared on 7 out of 10, and he also had one top 5 vote. Number 8 is Mysterious Billy Smith, a Canadian boxer described as the dirtiest fighter who ever lived. Smith employed a crafty, quick-handed style and was never quick to shy away from using roughhouse tactics. Mysterious Billy was a 2-time world welterweight champion, first winning that distinction in 1892 when he was 21 years old, and then reclaiming the title 6 years later in 1898. And just a quick note, the BoxRec figures at the bottom are just there as a point of reference, but I wouldn't put too much weight in them. Record keeping from that era may not be as reliable because the sport was so much different in a multitude of areas, where we had many more draws and no contests and sometimes unverified newspaper decisions or conflicting newspaper reports. And if you check out Wikipedia or the International Boxing Hall of Fame website, you might see slightly different records for a lot of these boxers from the 1890s than what BoxRec has at this moment. Moving along, number 7 is James J. Corbett. Gentleman Jim was an American heavyweight known as being one of the pioneers who took a more technical and scientific approach to the sweet science. A clever tactician for his day, Corbett won the World Heavyweight Championship in 1892 when he knocked out John L. Sullivan in round 21. Gentleman Jim didn't have very many fights, especially for the time, but he was consistently boxing against the best in the world, which included bouts against 9 fellow Hall of Famers. Gentleman Jim landed on 8 out of 10, and he got 2 top 5 votes. Number 6 is George Henry Lavigne. Kid Lavigne was an American known for being a fast, terrific puncher with great determination. Lavigne won the World Lightweight Championship in 1896. The Saginaw Kid went on to make a half a dozen defenses of his lightweight crown over the following 3 years. Kid Lavigne landed on 8 out of 10 in the survey, and he had 3 votes in the top 5, which is the most we've seen to this point. Number 5 is Jack McAuliffe. The Napoleon of the prize ring was an Irish-American boxer known for having incredible reflexes, strong power in both hands, and a great abundance of skills and talent. McAuliffe holds the distinction of being the very first world lightweight champion, and his championship reign lasted from 1886 until 1893. So McAuliffe was another early pioneer, and he landed on 8 out of 10 with 3 votes in the top 5. Number 4 is Charles McCoy. Kid McCoy was an American boxer who was known for being fast and tricky with a good ring IQ and a nice punch. The real McCoy won the World Middleweight Championship in 1896. In terms of the survey results, there is a strong consensus that McCoy was one of the very best, appearing on all 10 lists and getting 6 votes inside the top 5, which is twice as many as anyone else had gotten to this point. Number 3 is George Dixon. Little Chocolate was a Canadian boxer who was known as an outstanding athlete with blazing speed and a slippery, elusive defense. Despite his mesmerizing, graceful approach, Dixon could punch with authority. In 1890, Dixon became the first world bantamweight champion in history, and in doing so, he became the first black athlete to win a world championship. Dixon also won the World Featherweight Championship and was in fact a 3-time featherweight world champion. When you consider the segregation laws at the time and the fact that black fighters were customarily denied the opportunity to compete for a world championship, Dixon stands as an extraordinary man during the long, rich history of professional boxing. Dixon landed on all 10 lists. He had 7 votes for the top 5, with 5 of those 7 ranking him second. Number 2 is Tommy Ryan. An American, Ryan was an outstanding talent in his day, known as a puncher and a boxer who could both brawl away and also box at a more measured rhythm. Ryan was a pioneer for utilizing crouching defensive tactics. Ryan won the World Welterweight Championship in 1891, which he defended for nearly 7 years until he vacated. Ryan moved up and won the World Middleweight Championship in 1897, and he would defend that title well into the next decade. Ryan appeared in the top 5 on all 10 lists, and he also received 1 first-place vote. And number 1 is Bob Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons was a British-born boxer whose career began in Australia. Fitz was known for his devastating punching power and cleverness. Ruby won the World Middleweight Championship in 1891, and in 1897 Fitzsimmons won the World Heavyweight Championship in the very first heavyweight title bout captured on film. Fitzsimmons would eventually go on to become the first 3-division champion in boxing history when he won the light heavyweight crown the following decade in 1903. Fitzsimmons dominated the survey with almost unanimous agreement. 9 out of 10 people had Fitzsimmons at number 1 in the survey, and the only dissenting voice had him at number 3. That is a mighty strong consensus for Bob Fitzsimmons. A very special thanks to the 10 volunteers who participated in the 1890 survey. I did not personally participate in the survey, and honestly, I'm not sure I have a strong enough command of boxing history from that era to have even done so with a strong degree of confidence. So I am very grateful to those who contributed to this survey. Thank you very much. In my mind, learning about boxing history, there is no final destination. It's always an ongoing journey, and I for one found this exercise educational. I'm hoping those of you who aren't familiar with the era may have learned a little something about some boxers you may not have heard of. And for those of you who are familiar with this period in boxing history, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the final top 10 results from the survey. Please do share in the comments section. And here are those final results. Going forward, I intend to do one of these for every decade up through the 2010s. Indeed, there are some people who have already submitted lists for various other decades. The next deadline is February 26th for the 1900s, and then we'll do one every 2 or 3 weeks or so until we get through. If any of you are interested in participating, official submissions can be made in the Classic Forum on boxingforum24.com. I left a link in the description of the video. I will not be accepting lists anywhere except in the official survey thread. If you're potentially interested in volunteering, just sign up, go to the thread, and simply provide a list of your top boxers from the decades you choose to volunteer for. Minimum of 10 names, maximum of 25. Now, I only ask that you limit your participation to the decades you know best. If you're not comfortable with your command of boxing history before, say for example, the 1980s, then just ignore the previous decades and work on the ones you are familiar with. And if you are knowledgeable about the earlier decades coming up, the 1900s, the 1910s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, then please do consider volunteering if time permits. As far as the 1890s goes, despite the relatively small sample size, I still believe, based on what I do know from the era, that this is a pretty damn good list of premier boxers from the 1890s. So it definitely gets my stamp of approval, and I definitely believe the right guy landed the top spot, and it was almost unanimous agreement that Bob Fitzsimmons was the greatest boxer in the 1890s. So what do you think? Please share your views in the comments section. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful night. This is Rummy's Corner.